Amsterdam Dance Event will take place next week. And I think every producer right now wants to finish up their ideas. We all want to have our tracks to sound as good as possible. And we all want to have that loudness that every pro has. But the question is, how? Look, I've been in the studio with all sorts of producers and they all say the same thing. Your master is as good as your mixdown. And after multiple releases on big labels, I couldn't agree more. A good mixdown is the base of a good master. And of course, also know one thing. I'm not a mixing engineer, I'm not a mastering engineer. I'm just going to show you what works for me. But before we go into my techniques, I want to ask you something. It will mean the world to me if you subscribe to my channel and leave a like on this video. I make videos about producing and about your DJ career every week, so that will really help me out if you do so. Now, let's mix and master your track like a pro. For a great mixdown, there's a couple of things you need to understand. First, your sound design needs to be on point. And the philosophy about that is that I rather spend more time on finding the right sound than spending too much time on making sure that sound sounds right. Let me show you by example. I got this synth. Without all the effects, it sounds like this. And as you can hear, the synth that I use isn't that far away from the processed synth that I have. The only thing that you can hear is that it's a little bit dirtier. Let me first show you how it sounds individually, because these are two synths layered on top of each other. I started with Futurist to make it a little bit more dirty. Then we have an EQ to cut off the lows, because if you distort something, you get unwanted low frequencies. Then there's a Saturn 2 to make it even more dirty. Then there's another EQ to dip out the eerie frequencies, but also cut off the low end. Then we have a Pro R to put the synth in a room. And then I use a crispy clip to create some headroom. Just look at the dB meter when it's on and off. And of course, there's an LFO tool, but that's just for the sidechain. And notice how I can explain every effect that is on there. The rule of thumb is, if you cannot explain why you use that effect, don't use the effect. The second thing you need to know is controlling the low end is half the work. If your kick and bass line are working well with each other, the rest is easy. The key with this is knowing how it should sound in your studio, but also learning how to look at an analyzer. And the analyzer is just because then you can really see and hear what's wrong with your bassline and kick. For instance, I recommend Sub Ninja. It's an insane analyzer and it really helps me out a lot. Just look how it sounds when it's mixed. If there's no sudden peaks or there's not too much changes in the loudness of the sub, then your mix should be good. You can really see what happens if it's not mixed properly. Let's listen to that. As you can see and hear, there is a difference, of course. It's not mixed properly. But let's go one by one to see how I mixed that bass line. Most of my bass lines are considered of 3 presets. You have the sub, the mid, and the high. This is the sub. This is the mid. And this is the high. You need to know all these 3 presets go into a bus channel. But before they go into that bus channel, I treat them with some love. The sub has these effects on it. A saturation to boost up the lows. An EQ to boost a little more of some other frequencies. I know it's subtle, but still. Now we talk about the mid. The mid has these effects on it. So a Saturn 2 to make it dirty. Pretty dirty. EQ to cut off the low end. The reason why you do this is because otherwise it will interfere with the sub. Then I use a dimension expander to make it a little bit more wider. And if we're talking about the high end, these are the effects that are on there. I use a sound goodizer for a little distortion. And of course, because of the memes. I also use an EQ to cut off the lows. Listen to it, how it sounds all together. And as I said, it will go through a bus channel. I will use Kremit to glue all the frequencies together. And if you don't know what Kremit is, almost the same as an OTT, but without the phasing problem that OTT sometimes has. But it sounds like this then. It's nicely glued together. Then I use an SSL compressor to compress the sound. Then I have a Puik tag EQP1A, if I said it correctly, to boost the sub. Then I have a Puik tag MEQ5 to boost the 200 Hz and to make it sounding a little bit more dirty. And after that, I use a crispy clip to add a little bit more headroom. And of course, there's an LFO tool to sidechain everything. Number 3 is to work with bus channels. You already saw it, what I did with the bassline. The reason is that you will treat those sounds as one sound, so it's much easier to control it. I also do this with the beats. Just listen and see what happens with or without the effects on the beat. With the effects, it sounds much cleaner. We're going to start with an EQ to cut off all the low end, because a beat doesn't need any low end. Then we use a soft clipper to make sure that we don't clip above 0 dB. Then we add a PCM to add some dirtiness to it. Then there's an SSL compressor to glue everything together. Then you have a crispy clip to get some headroom. Just look at this. Look at the dB meter, with and without. But know one thing, with clipping you create unwanted low frequencies again. And you're going to EQ that with a linear phase EQ. You can simply click here and then you have a linear phase EQ with a parametric EQ too. If you don't do this, the volume will go up again. Then we have an Oxford inflator to push the volume. Okay, so now that your mixdown is on point, you did everything right, you need to render it. You want to render it minus 6 dB. If it's still clipping in the master channel, don't worry. Just lower the volume to around minus 6 dB. It's the same effect as lowering the volume of every individual mixer channel. There's only one catch. You need to make sure that there's no individual channel clipping. If it is clipping, the sound will distort, even though you lowered the volume of the master channel. Now it's time to master your song. What I do most of the time, and I know it's a little controversial, I will lower the volume just before the drop. I know it's subtle, but it works for me. Yo, what's up? Make sure that the song is assigned to a mixer channel. After that, I will add a Lin MB to push the high end of the track. Yo, what's up? Then we add a crispy clip, just to make sure that not everything is clipping. Yo, what's up? And then we add the secret sauce, the Ozone 11. I think there's no better plugin than the Ozone 11. And still, I'm not a master engineer, but I love this plugin. Then I used an EQ to push a little bit of the sub because I thought it needed it. Yo, what's up? Then I use an imager to make it a little bit more wider. Don't forget to turn this knob on, because otherwise it doesn't work. Yo, what's up? Then I have a clarity to create some clarity, if that makes sense. Yeah, I just like the sound of this. Yo, what's up? It's all in the details. Then there's a dynamic EQ to dip the eerie frequencies. Yo, what's up? And then you have the maximizer to push it around minus 6, 5.5 LUFS. Of course, I can push it louder, but to be honest, I like a little bit of dynamics in my master. Anything louder than minus 5 is just unnecessary. And I can tell you this because the DSP where you're uploading it, for instance Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, they will push your volume down. So anything louder than minus 5 doesn't make sense in my opinion. And then eventually it sounds like this. Yo, what's up? So I hope you learned something today. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave a like. And I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye!
You need to subscribe to Tim Hox on YouTube, or you're going to die.